You've been making very ambitious goals. You've been setting really ambitious plans. And every time you go after them or try to execute them, they just fall to shit, right? You get overwhelmed. It just seems like nothing you plan can go, or you can never see them fully through. Well, today I want to talk a little bit with you guys about how or what to expect, or at least some of my reflections that I've taken from 2023. And I want to share them with you in regards to how you can start planning more effectively so that you can set more realistic goals. And personally, I feel like when it comes to goal setting and learning yourself and learning your flow and just figuring out what works best for you, it takes time, right? We always talk about SMART goals, but in order to set SMART goals, it takes a lot of self-reflection. And I've noticed, at least in my own personal journey, that I learn a lot faster when I'm reflecting a lot more, or at least a lot more frequently, should I say. So I want to share with you guys just 3 points I wrote down this morning from my journey of 2023 and just really honing in on what I want to do and executing on the goals that I set for myself. So let's get into it. And also, how are you? How are you? Let me know down in the comments. I feel like I never do check-ins with you guys. I know this is unedited. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like this should be more conversational like this because we're besties, right? Like, yeah. Anyways, let me just take a quick sip. And also, if you have not already, before we get into these 3 little points, go ahead and subscribe and like. But okay, let's get into it. So the first point that I want to share with you guys is that you always need to give yourself at least double the time you think it's going to take to complete a task. Now, in our brains, it's natural for us to have these really high expectations for ourselves, right? Like we think that, oh, if we just put our heads down and focus, we can get things done in a week, 2 weeks. But during that time of planning, we don't consider, or most times we forget to consider the fact that outside factors come into play. For example, I set my schedule for today, Wednesday, and I had a doctor's appointment, and I set that from 11 to 12:30. I was at the doctor's office until 2 o'clock, right? So that ran into all my other things. Now, thankfully, because I've gone through this process enough times, I made sure that the task that I needed to complete for the week spans across 2 weeks, because some things I just can't control. For example, yesterday, I had to end up watching my younger sisters for the day. I had to take them out, get them dinner, get them ready, all these things. Again, because I have a 2-week span rather than a 1-week span, I have room to have things like that come up. Obviously, it's still my job to make sure that I'm being disciplined and focusing on the thing when I do have that time and that control. But some things are completely out of our control. So, excuse me. Tip number 1 is to just make sure that you over plan, but then you over prepare, meaning you go into the situations, making sure that you're giving 110%. So when I do have that downtime and when I have time to focus, I'm going all in to make sure that I'm giving the time that I have the most of my focus. So I'm making the most use of my time. So just keep that in mind. Another point I have is to plan for the worst, prepare for the best. Right? So it's similar to the point I just mentioned. But again, give yourself more than enough time. This is probably one of the main reasons why most people's strategies get messed up, is because you don't give yourself enough time. Now, because you made this whole elaborate plan, but then the first 2 weeks you get messed up because things take longer, now you don't feel like sitting back down to replan and re-strategize, because that was a long process in itself. It took a lot of energy. So you just decide to fall back, and then hopefully maybe in the next quarter or so, you'll pick back up. But most likely in your case, right, if you're watching this, and in a lot of other people's cases, you don't pick back up right away, right? It takes a lot of time. And so I just want to let you know that the strategy development process is tiring. It does take a lot of time. So just, again, keep that in mind as you're creating your strategy. Like, make sure you are giving yourself enough cushion, because you don't want to have to come back to square one. it was exhausting to start. So why would you want to come back again? Okay, so that is that point. Now moving on to the next one. Oh yes. I'm just gonna read it how I have it and then I'll break it down because this was just for me at first. This is more specific to the tasks that are new and that will require more thought, creativity, or research. You don't want to rush things and give half effort. However, if it is a task that you do often, it requires little to no thought and you can do it fast, then you can plan for what you know. Yes, okay. So this point was more specific towards things like, let's say, course development, or creating different graphics, or, just planning out different things. And I say course development because that's specific to what I'm doing. But even when it comes to, again, maybe even marketing strategy development, you don't want to rush those things, right? You want to give yourself plenty of time to be creative and to have those different thoughts and to put things together, especially when you're learning how to do something new. So just make sure that when it's something new, when it's something creative where you need to use some brain power, but maybe, you wouldn't say that graphics or any of these things are your strong suit. So if it's new, takes more time, requires a lot of creative effort, make sure you plan out more time. And another thing, when it comes to, I just blinked. When it comes to creating content strategies, let's just call it that. When it comes to creating content strategies, make sure you give yourself enough time as well. Or even when it comes to batch creation, right? You want to give yourself plenty of time. 1, to create the graphics. 2, to create captions that are actually going to sell, right? You're not just creating generic captions, but you're creating captions that will make your audience move. Number 3, when you're recording the videos, give yourself enough time so that you can actually create videos that you're proud of. 4, when you're editing your videos, or your photos or your carousels, giving yourself enough space and enough time to make sure there's something you can be proud of. And then, am I missing anything? Oh yeah, scheduling and things of that sort. Sometimes we don't know how much time it's going to take. After a while, you'll get the gist of like, okay, it takes roughly around 2 hours. That's at least how long it takes for me to create my content for the day for all platforms when I'm being super consistent, or if I'm doing my YouTube challenges, things like that. But for you, it might be different. It might be shorter. It might be longer, right? And remember, the longer you do things, the quicker it gets. So again, everything comes back down to consistency, reflecting, and just keeping in mind that in order to create quality things, it will take time. And that's okay. But just know that it will take time, and don't be upset when it takes time and you want it to be quicker. Sometimes when you're at the start, you got to put in that groundwork. You got to figure it out. You got to get used to the process. And then once you get used to the process, then it'll be a lot easier moving on into the future. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope this little reflection session was helpful for you. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Love you.